Particularly to any theocrats watching the show tonight, because I know you guys have had kind of a bad day. Sadly for theocrats today, these North Carolina Republican state legislators decided to cave. They decided to withdraw their legislation calling on the state of North Carolina to establish a state religion. Their House Joint Resolution 494 would have asserted that North Carolina is sovereign from the U.S. federal government, and as such, North Carolina henceforth will not recognize any federal interference with the state, quote, respecting an establishment of religion. The establishment of a state religion is quite literally the first thing that the Bill of Rights says you can't do. It's the first thing, even before freedom of speech. But North Carolina Republicans are not buying that stupid Constitution stuff. That stupid Constitution thing does not apply in North Carolina, and they will establish a state religion if they want to. The sponsors of this legislation are not just some little random bowl of mixed nuts either. The guy with the circle around him here, do we have that? Yes. He's the Republican majority leader in the North Carolina House. And he was part of this group trying to do this, along with 14 Republican co-sponsors. Until I guess somebody finally backed them into a corner and showed them that even though it might be disappointing to face up to it, sadly North Carolina is still part of the mean old United States of America, which does not let you do things like establish an official government religion. Maybe you were thinking of Saudi Arabia? The North Carolina legislature has been putting on a real show this year, now that they have gone completely Republican-controlled, with a Republican-controlled governorship as well. In addition to the establishing a state religion thing, they're also cracking down on divorce. Even if the reason you want to get divorced is, say, domestic violence, your spouse abusing you, the Republicans in the state legislature of North Carolina want the state government to intervene in your marriage to block you from getting divorced for 2 years, during which time they will mandate that you attend state government classes and workshops that are designed to make you not get divorced from your abusive spouse for 2 years. Because, you know, small government. Speaking of small government, we are also waiting action now from Alabama's Republican Governor Robert Bentley, who says he will sign legislation that will use targeted, medically unnecessary overregulation as a tool to shut down the state's abortion clinics. That policy has been passed by the Republicans in the Alabama state legislature, and the Republican governor of Alabama is expected to sign it. Republicans have already put the exact same law into effect and are using it to try and shut down the last clinic in Mississippi. Republicans are also doing the same thing now in North Dakota. The Republican governor signed it there, too, to shut down the last clinic in North Dakota. Republicans are working on the same approach to try to shut down all the clinics in Texas now as well, and they are halfway there in the state of Virginia. Virginia isn't even a red state, but it is governed at the state level by Republicans, and so they are using state government regulations to try to shut down all the abortion clinics in Virginia as well. That is what Republicans do wherever they are in power now. That is Republican governance 2013 style. In Arkansas and in North Dakota this year, Republicans are also just flat out passing unconstitutional bans on abortion, as if Roe versus Wade just didn't exist. They're just banning abortion at the state level. Just try and stop them. Arkansas Republicans are essentially in a frenzy this year, because in Arkansas, Republicans took control of both houses of the state legislature in this past election for the first time since '74. And I don't mean 1974, I mean 1874, since the Reconstruction era after the end of the Civil War. And when you have not had control of something since 1874 and you get control of it, I guess you just, yeehaw, let's ban abortion, who cares? Also, they've gotten right down to work to make clear that Arkansas rejects the Equal Rights Amendment. This is a headline from this week. The Equal Rights Amendment, you know, the equality of rights shall not be denied or abridged because of one's sex. Maybe it's because it's got the word sex in it, but Arkansas Republicans took decisive action this week in 2013 to declare their state to be against that. Republicans in Arkansas and Texas both introduced legislation in the past few weeks to block sex education, an education about preventing HIV and sexually transmitted diseases. Yeah, what do we need that for? That's dirty. North Dakota Republicans this year tried and failed to block sex ed specifically for kids who are homeless or in foster care. That's nice. In Ohio this week, the Republican Attorney General wrote a scathing letter to the federal government demanding that your boss, your employer, should be the one to decide whether or not you can get contraception through your health insurance. Boss, can I talk to you about something? In Texas this week, Republicans introduced legislation to overtly rescind all funding from anything gay-related and from all women's centers at all public colleges and universities in the whole state. This is what the Republican Party is working on around the country right now. The Beltway press does not cover Republican politics that way, but that is what they're doing. It's not what they're talking about, it's what they're doing. You don't even have to go very far outside the Beltway to see what they're doing. In Richmond, Virginia this past week, which is not very far outside the Beltway. In Richmond this past week, Virginia's Republican Attorney General petitioned a federal court to let the state of Virginia keep its sodomy law. You remember when the Supreme Court said sodomy laws are unconstitutional and they have to be struck down? Virginia decided to keep theirs anyway. A Republican state legislator at the time, a young man named Ken Cuccinelli, he was part of the effort to keep Virginia's sodomy law on the books even after the Supreme Court ruling because he still really liked the sodomy law. When he was running for Attorney General in 2009, he explained his thinking on the subject and why he was even against protecting gay people from discrimination, telling a Virginia paper in 2009, quote, "Homosexual acts are wrong. They are intrinsically wrong. And I think in a natural law-based country, it is appropriate to have policies that reflect that. They don't comport with natural law. I happen to think that it represents, to put it politely, I need my thesaurus to be polite, it represents behavior that is not healthy to an individual and in aggregate is not healthy to society." And so, keep the sodomy laws on the books. Well, now, that state legislator is Attorney General, and he is using Virginians' taxpayer dollars right this second to try to keep the state's unconstitutional sodomy law on the books. Now, in case sodomy is not a word that's in your everyday parlance, the law says that even between consenting adults, even between straight consenting adults, even between straight consenting married adults, the state government of Virginia bans you from putting your faces or genitals together in a way that is not approved by the state government. Ken Cuccinelli's petitioning, I can't even say it, it's too upsetting. Ken Cuccinelli's petitioning to keep that on the books. Since Mr. Cuccinelli is also the Republican Party's nominee to be the next governor of Virginia, he would be succeeding Governor Ultrasound, since Ken Cuccinelli is not just some random wingnut Republican acting alone and is instead the Republican Party's choice to lead the state, Mother Jones magazine has now inquired of Mr. Cuccinelli's gubernatorial campaign to ask if he personally has ever violated the state sodomy law. Ken Cuccinelli, have you ever violated the crimes against nature prohibitions in the sodomy law that you are petitioning a federal court to keep on the books in the Commonwealth of Virginia? Mother Jones asked his campaign if Cuccinelli or anyone working for his campaign had ever engaged in any of the conduct prohibited by the state's ban on oral sex and anal sex between consenting adults. They also asked whether Mr. Cuccinelli would fire any campaign staffer who had done so. So far, no answer. I kind of hope Mother Jones does not get an answer to this. Can you imagine if they did get an answer? The Beltway version of the Republican Party is getting all sorts of unearned credit right now for supposedly trying to move the party past this stuff, right? RNC Chairman Reince Priebus gets all sorts of Beltway credit for saying that Republicans should try to at least sound less Old Testament-y when they talk about social issues. But I say that the credit for moving the party past this stuff is unearned credit because even Reince Priebus himself, the Republican Party chairman, cannot hold himself back from this stuff. It's too alluring. They can't give it up. Here's Reince Priebus 2 days ago saying that if you support Planned Parenthood, you support infanticide. Infanticide? Seriously? No, not seriously. But this is the national chairman of the Republican Party's take on it. The Beltway line on the Republican Party right now is that social conservatism is over for Republicans, right? That the party is modernizing and kicking all those old school social conservative issues to the curb. That Beltway line is total bullpucky. Look at what they're doing, not what they're saying. Dozens of congressional Republicans and Republican senators have just signed on to demanding more investigations of Planned Parenthood. Their gubernatorial candidate in Virginia is fighting for sodomy laws. They are banning abortion and cracking down on the gay everywhere they are in control of any form of state government. The Beltway common wisdom on this is wrong. The social conservatives have triumphed. in the Republican Party. And you can tell it not from what they say to the Beltway press. You can tell it from how they are using the power that they have in governing all over the country. You cannot distill this stuff out of the Republican Party. This is the Republican Party. If you kicked them out of your bedroom, they would have no idea where else to go. That does it for us tonight. We will